Hi all, Cullen here, and welcome to Law Live. My next guest will need no introduction. 25 years in the legal sphere, leading barrister at 8 Wentworth Chambers, and here to talk about the culture of no and being a barrister in the new digital landscape. Would you please make very welcome to our Law Live, Mr. Philippe Doyle Gray. How are you, Philippe? And thank you for joining.
I'm wonderful, Cullen, but I need to begin by telling you something that when you do the impossible, try to remember it's best done on a Tuesday. Now, why am I saying that? Let me tell you why. Okay, here's the first tip. I hate social media where you tune in for some information and people waffle. And podcasts go, how are you? How are you? I'm well. How are you? Did you see this? No, I didn't. How are you? I get straight to delivering value. First thing out of my mouth, you've got the value. You've got, when you do the impossible, try to remember it's best done on a Tuesday. That will stick with you. You've got to hang around to understand it all. But one thing that hasn't changed in this culture of no is that if you're a barrister, you have to begin by delivering value. First thing out of your mouth, even before you say hello.
Value first.
Value first. But in all seriousness, thank you for having me here on this live stream today.
No, it's an absolute honor. And your Chambers said it best, 8 Wentworth Chambers said, it's an experiment and I'm glad we're doing it together. The first at the bar. So this is fantastic. Now, it exudes off you, Philippe. You obviously enjoy what you do, but do you love what you do?
You will have heard of or seen Justitia, who's the statue of the blindfolded woman around courts. I love Justitia. We're in a loving relationship, but I have to say it's a little bit dysfunctional. You know, I was. There's a lot of talk about life balance and the relationship that you have with your job. And sadly, why I really love Justitia and I love practicing law, there are a few signs between us both, I must say, of this relationship. You know, there are a few issues such as, see if any lawyers relate to this, poor communication, a lack of respect, high levels of resentment, boundaries not being, patterns of dominance and submission, framing and avoidance of times spent together. I think that would summarise a typical day in court for most barristers. So, look, I really, really love what I do. I wouldn't do anything else. But we have come to a time where me and every other lawyer has to really consider how we're going to live our lives as professionals. And that's what I want to talk about today, culture of no.
I love that. Well, yeah.
The first thing is, as I just said, you should really be afraid of telling the truth. Some lawyers are afraid of telling the truth. I'm not really afraid of anything anymore. I'm 50 years old, 25 years in practice. I've had judges of the hierarchy yelling at me at times. I'm simply not afraid. And my role is to tell the truth on behalf of my client. It's a good voice. And you shouldn't be afraid. If you are afraid of telling the truth, that's fine. There's also fear there, you know. So embrace the fear and tell the truth that you are afraid. You'll learn to be courageous. That's a really useful skill for every lawyer to learn today. And that's part of the culture of no. We're saying no. You might be upset with me, or more importantly, I might think that you are upset with me. But I'm going to continue doing my job as a polite and respectful way. And no, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep on. That's the culture of no.
I love it. That's the one part. Well, you're very au fait with technology. Do you think that's what the 21st century barrister should be?
I lost you, Cullen. You've frozen to me, so I'm going to keep on talking.
Please.
What is fake name? Big factor with three reasons. First was I'm good in black. I did a week. I have been. I enjoy the sound of my voice. So I was disappointed that we only had 30 minutes. It's just enough time to get warmed up. And I can see that you're back.
I'm back.
Now, you sound like Doug again. This happens every single technology presentation. I'm just going to barrel on.
Please.
Because I could talk forever. So while you talk about internet connection, let me expand on culture. So we are transitioning from one historical epoch into another. From now, stories are going to be writing texts about a moment when we passed from one epoch to another, and it's going to be this year. This is the year that we have changed. Is the industrial age, that's the way up, and we've got information age, that's the way in, and we've passed a critical junction this year. We've implemented some technology because of the coronavirus COVID pandemic, and we've suddenly changed the way that we have to do things, and that's propelled us more firmly into the information age, like from the industrial age. To understand what I think this is the year that historians are going to look back on for a real change is because what I've learned in dealing with technology is that there are really two phases. And we finished the first phase. And this year we've started the second. So what are the first phase? Technology is using technology to do things that already just to do them differently. And that could be quicker, it could be easier, it could be better, it could be worse. So you can write a letter, you can play a pen and write it, or you can sit down at a keyboard and type away an email and basically doing the same thing. Now, I'm not saying technology, just TikTok and a few other social media, but that's part one. Just do use technology what you've already done. That's phase one. We finished that. And that's something about being comfortable with using technology. And that's something where I feel applied myself and I've become very au fait with technology. At least that's my career.
And do you think it's an experience piece that people can learn along the way, or they should invest time in that as well as their career in law?
Unfortunately, I see what you do. I'm going to assume everyone's still listening, and I'm going to talk about.
I am.
Oh, you are listening. Good. I haven't bored you.
We are hanging on every word. We are
hanging on every word. Fantastic. That's what all barristers like. I remember I was in the United States many years ago at a legal conference, and I was explaining to an American attorney what a barrister was, and he said, "Oh, now I understand. You're a charismatic narcissist." So, in the 21st century, and we're almost past the I think solicitors and lawyers be technology. You at least understand if you can't operate it. And there also is this. Once you have an option to do something freely, then you might be able to do better. Whatever better means to you. Maybe it's cheaper, maybe it's easier, maybe it's something else. I don't know. But we are really living a magical time. I think video conferencing, not necessarily like this is something we could have seen on TV, but phone. And on a phone, you can have video conference with somebody on the other side of the planet. And even that's not the exciting part. I think the exciting part is that's free. You know, we watched Trek and people had smartwatches back then, and they're doing video calls, and we thought, okay, well that's going to cost a bomb. And we ended up saying, well, we've got that technology, but it's absolutely free. You know, you get on a plane, you can fly just at the speed of sound, and you can pay for Wi-Fi, and you have real live communication with somewhere on a plane. And you see coupling the unit on separated 2 millimeters of aluminium from minus 50 degrees Celsius. It's amazing. It's amazing. It just did not happen. So I think that everybody needs to appreciate that there are options. You need to think about your exercise, your options. But that's only dealing with phase one. Now, we're working through, but historically, I think we're now into phase two.
And what is phase two? When you talk about phase two, Philippe, what is that?
Well, phase two. Yep. Now, go on. You're just sounding like a Dalek. I was going to say, phase two has nothing to do with transforming to Dalek. That's still yet to come.
Yeah. I think we're back on, Philippe, if you wanted to continue that train of thought.
So they talk about phase two because I don't need any invitation to talk about phase two. This is what interests me. This is really the culture of no. This is something I've come up with. So phase two is doing things with technology that you couldn't do before. It's impossible. So there is no analogy with dealing with the past. So you are taking, for example, information and you're searching that information. You could do that in the past. I grew up in the era of encyclopedia, where you had these hard copies proudly displayed on a bookcase. If you wanted to know something, you went there. And all the time, you didn't have what you were after, and you only had one view. Today we have Wikipedia, which contains both serious and less serious information. And we have the World Wide Web, and we've got the internet. So we can find out all manner of things that we just couldn't do previously. And a lot of the information didn't exist. But when I grew up, you respected institutions. The police officer, the school principal,
Yes.
the doctor, your solicitor, the local police, or the local minister, all the people that today I say can witness a statutory declaration. These people represented institutions, said what they had to say. But over recent years, with the explosion of information, we've lost institutional trust, because for the first time we've got a vast amount of information at fingertips. And we know when our leaders or our authority figures are not telling the truth, at least sometimes. And the place that we reach now, I think, is that there has been so much information that has been undermining so many of our leaders for so long that we just realize what was all that cloth. And just because you are the policeman or the priest or the school principal or whatever you are, doesn't mean what you're saying deserves respect. And so this has brought about fundamental cultural changes, one of which is loss of institutional trust. To institutions, the people represent institutions, or part of it, part of the institution, which is legal system, or court system, or the administration of justice. They're really good responses. And these are the first thing is reasons to change. Notice for a moment is that while some people are continuing to resist change, others resist the status quo. So one group when you put them on things in the same, other people quietly are saying, no, actually things are going to change. And this is in the West that we call it is quite clean. And they don't like the fact their institution of their or they don't boss or some such. It's more fundamental than one relation else's culture, not because you are a bad person, but because the culture itself is not worthy of respect. If institutional trust is gone, I think it is, we all have to earn respect. I have to earn your respect. I've got to earn the respect of every client, of everybody sitting here. If you don't respect by the end of this, that's my fault. That's a problem. It's not because you are a bad person. Quitting is a type of resistance business. The key challenging issues about which is an action. And I'm going to about that. Or finally have a culture of nothing go the way they've always been before COVID. Well, no, it's time to make a change. It's actually started before COVID. It actually emerged from Southeast Asia, where and lying down is a response to the traditional culture of no. We're going to change. We don't know what our ideas are. We don't what they are. Yes, no, not autism. And the responses against no as means for instance. Just a couple of days, this is coming out in a report by Percolate that spoke about a situation in Victoria where magistrates in Victoria were complaining that barristers were not turning up in person for courts. The feedback apparently was that there was a perception of us to appear in person, particularly in Victoria. And so the bench realized to be assisted by barristers in court in person. And the perception was more convenient for their to appear online. This affected the so-called solemnity of the courtroom. So that's a perspective of no, I don't want to change. I want things to be the same way. Now,
Yes.
what's really interesting from a cultural point of view is that no one has said, no barrister has said, I'm appearing by AVL because it's more convenient for me and only me. In fact, what barristers have said is it's they've said it's more convenient. But you know what? Barristers are concerned about clients. And it's a lot more convenient for clients. And a completely contrasting view happens here in New South Wales. I don't practice in personal injury anymore at all. But I really have to admire a particular judge who is head of the New South Wales Personal Injury Commission, who's a former solicitor. And this is a judge of the district court here who I had the pleasure of meeting and interviewing. It's Judge Gerard Phillips. And just before COVID struck, he had plans to wrap up. The commissioners doing so much work that they couldn't accommodate all the commissioners and judges and all the litigants and all the cases. And then COVID came along, and he told me about the numbers they had. He said COVID came along, they had not stopped doing things in person, and they went to the link. And they continue to serve people. But they made some observations. They made two. The first of these is the amount of paper that they say. They actually kept numbers on some of it. So he was printing out documents in his tribunal for all tribunal members that would all people online, and tribunal members want to work so they print out. In 1 month, they dropped from their usual monthly printing of 500,000 sheets of paper down to 300 sheets of paper next month. Not 300,000 sheets of paper, 300.
Wow.
From 500,000 to 300. He actually told me that they had a staff member whose job was just to source and distribute paper, and they had a room that was just full of paper. And he said, now I can get rid of that. So all the renovation plans went out the window, and instead the physical premises remained the same, and the investment went into beefing up judges and commissioners' rooms so they could participate by AVL. And he had to think about the solemnity of the occasion. He said, what about people who are not here? Well, if you are a rural resident, there might be things, first of all, more important than solemnity, and that is access to justice. And the fact that you don't have to get on a plane, you don't have to spend money, you can just walk to your local service centre and participate is great. But also, secondly, there's no presumption that just because you're in person means that there's anything solemn. All experienced barristers, me included, have been inside a court where judges are yawning. Judges are not paying attention. Judges are looking bored, you know? This is this is not solemn. And they're not yawning politely, like, oh, you know. I was in court earlier this year where the judge was like, oh
my goodness.
He was yawning so loud. It was like Chewbacca. And I'm thinking there going, well, this doesn't seem to be particularly solemn. Mainly, perhaps it was on AVL. He could have muted himself. Now, fortunately, it was my opponent speaking. Of course, not me. Of course, not me. But Judge Phillips is really setting the way for this culture of no, of we need to stop about the status quo and think it's everything. We need to embrace what's new. We need to try, we need to experiment. And that's really what the Bar Association, my Bar Association, is all about. I mean, it's my with servants of all of none. And that means think of other people first before yourself. You know, it might be comfortable and it might be familiar when we've got technology and we just want to do things that we've always done without trying anything new. But that might not be what's best. What's comfortable for me is not necessarily best for my fellow human being. And so culture of is quite quick and is quite resistant, and this cooperation between boys to embrace more and more technology and to deliver paper, for example, just at the very end, is really growing. And sometimes people, older people, and not necessarily just older people, some people don't like it. The law is an art. It's not a science. Everybody is entitled to their taste of art. You can say that piece of art is taste, or is my taste. But only very selective people can say whether something is good or not. And one of the terrifying things is that up to this year, a lot of people are saying the only good way to run a trial is without using people who on the side of the culture know, which is that's what there is influx. There is now energy. The other side of the cultural no, which is I'm not going to tolerate something that is the helpful. You come from an epoch of industrial revolution, you've got a steam engine, and basically the steam engine works, and the steam engine doesn't.
Yes.
But today, it's not about working or not working; it's about better or worse. So, what's something that what's a piece of advice that I would give, say, to me when I was younger? I thought this recently, and I think it boils down to this: learn to enjoy put it in math. What does that mean? Okay. But we've got to, so just learn to enjoy math and listen. People are rude. You know what? Enjoy putting it in your mouth and embrace the fact that maybe there's suffering, cope, and you can be the bigger, better person. And really enjoy retaining control. I love now appearing in court. I lost my cool. I lost my cool for years. I'm enjoying, and more generally, outside of my fellows, it's also really good advice. And you enjoy putting it in your mouth. And also, I discovered it's also really good advice. Anyway, putting it in your mouth.
Really appreciate all your valuable insights there, Philippe. I think a lot of people tuning in can get a lot from what you're saying. And I think there's a lot to ruminate on.
My pleasure.
And really appreciate you coming on. And be sure to connect with Philippe on LinkedIn. I love... Yeah. What can people expect with interacting with you on LinkedIn, Philippe? So in terms of interacting on LinkedIn, I've seen some of your conversations. It's very thought-provoking, which I love. And one thing I saw recently, there was a discussion you were having with another lawyer, which normally would be, normally they walk away threatened or don't want to talk. You basically used the Socratic method and said, please don't throw your toys away. Come here and play, and maybe I can walk away illumined and, understanding the way you view the world. And I thought that was quite a great way to frame it, especially in a world where no one wants to be wrong, if that makes sense.
That's very kind of you to say. I'm the first person to admit that anyone can teach me something new, and I love learning new things.
Yes.
And I've come to appreciate the Socratic method of asking questions. Not everybody likes it, but what's important today is you've got to stand up, I think, for what you believe in. If you're going to be happy, you've got to believe in something, and you've got to stand up for it, and you've got to defend it. And the only way to defend it in a civil way is listen to what somebody else is saying. And if they ask you a question, answer it. You might think it's a rude question or a hard question or an irrelevant question, but that's your perception, which is not necessarily right. So I think it's always important to engage with people, and that's what I tried to do. But sadly, I didn't get any I didn't get any feedback.
Oh, do you think it's the way because the language in our heads that coming across in the written page, people inject their own insecurities and their own voice to it? Like you could have written that
Absolutely.
very well meaning, and they're reading it with another set of lens, like goggles on almost.
Absolutely. I think, and I did write it in a specific way of not being mean or nasty, but actually wanting to engage in what I thought was a really, really interesting topic from someone who'd really thought about it. And I thought, here's a person who can teach me something. So they're a colleague. I respect them. I read their stuff before. They're obviously intelligent and articulate. So let's stop with the LinkedIn posts that all say things like, I'm deeply honoured / privileged / humbled to open brackets, quote whatever, something I want to boast about. Let's stop with that.
The humble brag in law.
A humble brag in law. I don't do that. If you look at my LinkedIn, I never do that because that's not delivering value. That's another thing. You need to get something out of LinkedIn if you're going to read my post. If you're giving me your time, I've got to give you something for that. So absolutely, and you can. Some things are best discussed. And it's very easy to misinterpret anything that is written down. We all have a pathological critic in our minds, that's commenting on us. And that's very healthy if it makes us perform better. But it can sometimes, if you're feeling down, if you're tired, if you're not in the right mood, you can be, I hate using this word triggered, but you can interpret something. Your pathological critic can go, there you go.
Yes.
Another problem, another person who hates you. And you become defensive about that. So there's nothing you can do about that, I think, other than be explicitly kind and open and say, hey, I really would like to hear from you. And then shut up and listen, which is what I tried to do. But I understand that not everybody deals with that.
So what would be, I guess, wrapping it all up, what would be your feedback to the PC community and those that get easily offended on LinkedIn because they're viewing it as trolling or someone being too acerbic for their liking? What would be your advice? Do people need to change their mindset when interacting and engaging, or do people need to be careful the way they frame things initially?
No one ever achieved anything by being offended. You've got to reconsider what you want to do in life. And that is, do you want to build something or do you want to tear something down? And if you want to build something, you've got to accept the fact that every construction project has its accidents. And no matter what you do, it's not going to run smoothly. But think to yourself, if you're listening to someone that otherwise you respect, why is this person speaking the way that they do? Let's put aside my feelings. Let's be curious and say, I thought this person was reasonable. Let's assume they're reasonable. Let's try and work out what they're saying. Let's ask some questions. I'm a great believer in the Greeks. They basically invented everything in ancient Greece. And let's use the Socratic dialogue. There's nothing stopping you from calmly asking a directed clinical question. And if at the end, in having this discussion, you've persuaded someone to change their mind just by asking questions, then not only are you on the path to building something, but you also should consider being a barrister.
Being an advocate and get well versed in the Socratic method.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Very good. And any closing points that you'd like people to walk away with just before we leave there, Philippe, that we haven't touched on?
The last thing I'd like to say is every individual can make a difference. I think the greatest thing to see is young people who think that they don't have any power, who dislike what's happening, and there's quiet quitting. And it demonstrates that actually you do have power and you do make a difference. And it's find a way, don't hesitate, stand up for what you believe in. And even if you're quiet about it and you don't stand very tall, do something and you'll be happier. I will respect you for it. And more importantly, you'll respect yourself for it. No one should fear that. And if you're having a hard time, any of my colleagues, anybody else, I'm on the web. I publish my details. Contact me. I'm more than happy to talk to you, whether you're a student or a practitioner or you're not in the legal profession at all. If you think you're alone, give me a call. You're not alone. I'm more than happy to help you stand on your own 2 feet. Because I'm interested in building things.
You're a builder and a starter rather than tearing things down.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, there are 2 ways to have the tallest building. You can either focus on yours or tear others down. Unfortunately, the tall poppy syndrome focuses on that, but I'm glad you're one of the few that concentrates on building and helping others rise. And you certainly do that every day. Well done, Philippe. And thank you for coming on today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been my absolute pleasure.
Where can people reach out to you easily that they could go to a coffee? Is it LinkedIn? Is that where you hang out? Where's the best place, Philippe?
You find me on LinkedIn or find me on my website. Just search for my name. It'll come up. There's only one of me. I'm unique. It's just one Philippe Doyle Gray. Even if you misspell it, it'll be me. Google knows me. We're great buddies. And go to my website. Link. You can email me, or you'll go through to a link, and you can arrange to have a coffee with me. And
market leading, one of the best Calendlys in the market, I must say. I just want to shout. There you go. I copied mine off yours.
Thank you very much.
Imitation, the biggest form of flattery, as they say. But nonetheless, it's been a fantastic conversation, especially this last 15 minutes, uninterrupted technology-wise. So obviously, the algorithm and StreamYard and LinkedIn Live wanted to hear what you had to say at this final 15 minutes. So thank you, Philippe.
And I'd like to, just on that 15 minutes of better interference, I'd like to thank all our uninvited guests who've worked on the technology symbol. And I'd like to say a big ni hao.
Ni hao ma. Great stuff there, Philippe. Thank you so much. And anyone who else wants to tune in, we come out every Wednesday, and we'll be uploading the most, I guess, listen to moments of Philippe's chat that you can hear onto the podcast later tonight. Bye for now, everyone. Take care.